I always hated going back to the house after Dad passed, not just because of the grief, though that was a part of it, but because of the stillness that seemed to seep into the walls after he died, like something had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. The house felt emptier than it should have for just one man being gone. It was the same creaky old farmhouse on the edge of Glenwood, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, and it hadn't changed in years. White paint peeling from the porch railings, a rusted wind chime still clinking faintly by the kitchen door, the same bird's nest in the porch light, but stepping inside after the funeral. With the sun bleeding low through the windows and dust dancing in the air, it felt smaller, like it had collapsed inward on itself. Dad hadn't been much of a talker, especially in the years after Mom left, and I guess I always figured there was more to him than I knew, but I never expected to uncover. What I did, I was up in the attic that first evening, just trying to do something productive to avoid thinking too much. He had piles of old junk, boxes labeled in his blocky handwriting with tools or Xmas lights or don't open, the last of which obviously became my top priority the moment I saw it. The box itself was buried behind a moth-eaten recliner, nearly crumbling from moisture, and when I picked it up, the bottom almost gave out. Inside, underneath a mess of black electrical cables and what looked like broken CB radios, was an old VHS tape. It was wrapped tight in cloudy plastic and sealed with strips of duct tape, like it had been mummified. There was no label on the outside, but I could feel the hard edge of the cassette inside. It rattled slightly when I shook it, and for some reason, it made my skin crawl. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe some old home movie or something from his mechanic days, but I didn't remember us ever owning a camcorder growing up. I ended up finding an old Panasonic VHS player in a box labeled Den, and took everything downstairs to the living room, figuring if I was going to watch a ghost from the past, I might as well do it with a cold beer in hand. The TV was dusty and clunky, the kind with big manual dials and a high-pitched hum when it turned on, but it still worked. I popped the tape in, and for a few seconds, there was just static. Then the screen blinked, and a timestamp appeared in the top left corner, August 12, 1996, 2:03 a.m. The footage was grainy, black and white, handheld and jittery, like someone filming with one arm. At first, it showed nothing but a hallway. Our hallway. My hallway. The same floral wallpaper, the same old sconce lights that flickered if you touched them wrong. The camera panned slowly toward the basement door, which was open just a crack. A man's voice, my father's voice, unmistakably, muttered something unintelligible, low and urgent. The camera descended the stairs in that nauseating, jerky motion that gave me an instant sense of dread. The basement looked wrong. It was our basement, yes, same concrete floor and water heater in the corner, but there were folding tables covered in notebooks, tools, cables, and what looked like a small recording setup with a microphone and reel-to-reel tape machine. On the far side of the room, beneath a single swaying bulb, sat a woman in her 20s, pale, shaking, eyes darting around like she didn't know where she was. She wore a hospital gown. Her hands were cuffed in her lap. Subject 3, Session 5, my father said, stepping into frame. He looked younger, maybe mid-30s, hair thick and dark, and his eyes, they weren't right. Not angry, not sad, just empty, like he was somewhere else in his head. "Can you still hear the voices?" he asked the woman. She didn't answer. She looked at the camera, dead into it, and whispered something I couldn't make out. Then, just before the tape cut off, I swear to God, she said my name, Ethan. That's when the screen went black. No static, no rewind, just pure silence. I sat there frozen, my beer now warm in my hand, heart pounding in my ears. How could she have said my name? The tape was dated 2 years before I was born. I spent the rest of the night in a haze, going through the box, but there were no other tapes, At least, not yet. I tried calling my aunt, but she hadn't talked to him in years and had no clue about any projects or experiments. The next day, I went back to the attic, this time with a flashlight and gloves. The deeper I dug, the stranger things got. Old notebooks filled with symbols, pages torn from what looked like medical charts, audio cassettes labeled with weird titles like Mirror Session 4B and Twin Frequency. And then I found the vent. Or rather, I found the space behind the vent. It was just a decorative grate near the base of the chimney, and when I tapped it, it rang hollow. I pried it off and pulled out another box, this one metal, locked with a simple latch. Inside were 3 more VHS tapes, all labeled Project Iris. That name didn't mean anything to me at the time, but it's haunted my dreams ever since. I didn't watch the new tapes right away. I think part of me was afraid they'd show something I couldn't forget, but the house, it didn't let me rest. Doors creaked open on their own. Footsteps thudded above me, even though I was the only one there. And one night, just as I was falling asleep, I heard a voice from the attic say, clear as day, "He's watching now." I don't remember running out of the house, but I woke up in my car at sunrise, parked halfway down the gravel driveway. I had a bruise on my left shoulder and dried blood under one fingernail, and I kept thinking about the woman on the tape. Who was she? What had my father done to her? Why was she in our basement? The attic hasn't been touched in years, and the smell up there isn't just dust anymore. There's something else, metallic and sour, like old copper and mold, and sometimes I think I can hear the tape still playing when the TV's unplugged. I haven't told anyone, not really. Who would believe me? My dad experimented on people in our basement in the 90s and left behind haunted VHS tapes that might include a woman predicting my birth. Sounds like bullshit, I know, but I saw it. I heard it. And something deep in my gut tells me I've only scratched the surface. I don't know what Project Iris is yet, but I have a feeling it wasn't just some fringe science thing. I think whatever my dad was doing, it changed something. Maybe it created something, and I think that whatever it is, it's still in the house, watching, waiting, just like the woman said. It took me 3 days to work up the nerve to watch the second tape, and during those 3 days, I barely slept, barely ate, just moved through the house like a shell, pretending to organize Dad's stuff when really all I did was pace, rewind that first tape in my head, and stare at the metal box with the 3 additional cassettes, like it was some kind of cursed artifact I dug up from the earth. I kept hearing things, small things at first, like the whine of the old fridge motor, sounding just a bit like a whisper, or floorboards groaning in the attic above me when there was no draft. But then it got worse. One night I heard a voice downstairs, too low to understand, but it went on for a full minute and stopped the moment I reached the bottom step. I convinced myself I was overtired, paranoid, maybe still reeling from the funeral, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed the moment I played that first tape. Like it wasn't just revealing a secret, it had triggered something, released something that had been sleeping in this house longer than I'd been alive. On the 4th morning, after a dream in which I saw my father standing at the foot of my bed, holding a mirror that reflected not me, but a pitch-black hallway stretching into nothing, I cracked. I took the second tape, the one labeled Project Iris S4B, and shoved it into the VHS player before I could change my mind. The timestamp said August 17th, 1996, 3:11 a.m. Same grainy black and white footage, but this time the camera was on a tripod, fixed, and the basement looked even more deranged. Wires taped to the walls in odd patterns. A large mirror propped against the far wall, covered in greasy fingerprints, and a small figure strapped to the same chair as before, though this time it wasn't the woman. It was a child. A boy, maybe 7 or 8, pale, breathing heavily, eyes darting toward the mirror. He didn't say a word, but he kept shifting in his seat, like something was behind him. My father's voice, from off-screen, asked, "Do you see him?" The boy nodded slowly, and my stomach turned. "Is he talking to you again?" Another nod. "Tell me what he said." The boy opened his mouth, but the voice that came out wasn't his. It was a low, growling rasp that sounded like it had been buried for centuries. "He knows you built the door wrong." I had to pause the tape. I sat there on the edge of the couch, pulse hammering in my throat, trying to convince myself it was a trick, maybe a dubbed voice, something explainable. But I knew my dad wasn't a filmmaker. He didn't even know how to set up an email account, let alone fake something like this. I pressed play again. The boy suddenly began screaming, not in pain, but like something was inside him trying to get out, and the camera started to flicker, not like it was breaking, but as if the light in the room itself was warping, pulsing with the boy's voice. Behind him, the mirror began to shimmer, and for a split second, I swear I saw something inside it. Something tall, thin, featureless, just standing there watching him. My father's voice said, very calmly, "He's crossing over. Increase the loop." Then static. Hard, loud, high-pitched static that made me leap from the couch and nearly rip the tape out of the machine. I sat in silence for what felt like hours. My dad? He was experimenting on kids? But for what? What the hell was the door? And that voice? Jesus, I can still hear it if the house gets too quiet. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the boy's face contorting, jaw trembling like he was choking on words not meant for humans. Around 3 a.m., the air in the house changed, dead still but humming, like I'd stepped into a thick fog I couldn't see. I tried turning on the TV to drown it out, but the screen only flashed static. I could feel it, whatever it was, just watching. I ran into the kitchen and turned on every damn light in the house. That's when I noticed the basement door was open. I hadn't gone down there since I was a kid. I avoided it like a plague. It always smelled like mildew and rust, and I had this irrational fear that the shadows in the corners weren't empty. But now the door was open just a few inches, and I stood there, frozen, watching it like it might swing wider. And it did. Slowly, deliberately. I backed up, reached into the drawer, and grabbed Dad's old pocket knife, even though I knew a knife wouldn't mean shit against whatever the hell was making that cold crawl up my spine. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and shoved the refrigerator in front of it, feeling ridiculous, but unable to do anything else. Then I went back upstairs and sat in the hallway until sunrise, just listening. The next morning, I went down anyway. I had to. The house had stopped feeling like mine. It was Dad's house again now, or worse, it belonged to something else. The basement was darker than I remembered, and the light bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered when I turned it on. I stood at the bottom step and looked around. The folding tables were still there, though the equipment was covered in dust and cobwebs. The chair was still in the center, restraints dangling like skeletal hands. The mirror was gone. In its place, I found a taped-up cardboard box labeled in my dad's handwriting, "Do not view." Inside were more tapes, reels, and notebooks. The tapes were all labeled with session codes. The notebooks were worse. One was full of drawings, spirals, symbols, faces with no eyes, people split in two with notes like echo phase, and memory bleed begins here. Another was a journal, though most of the pages were torn out. The ones that remained were terrifying. One read, "The loop is not mental, it's architectural. The door is not a metaphor. Mirrors reflect potential, not just light. Subject 5 entered at 3:33 a.m., has not returned." Another read, "He speaks in perfect copies of voices he shouldn't know. He knew your mother's voice, Ethan. He said she's still here." I dropped the book and stumbled backward, knocking over the chair. The sound it made Metal hitting concrete echoed like a gunshot. I didn't pick up anything else. I just left, locked the door behind me. I told myself I wasn't going back down there, but I knew I would. I had to. My dad was doing something awful, twisted, but he was onto something. He wasn't crazy. Or maybe he was, but something real had driven him there. I can't explain how I knew. It was just a sense, a feeling deep in my bones, like I was caught in the gravity of something ancient that had only pretended to be dormant. I didn't go outside for the rest of the day. I kept all the lights on and sat on the couch staring at the tape player, wondering if I had the stomach for the next tape. And that night, just after 2 a.m., I heard it again. The sound of the tape playing even though the machine was empty. The hiss of static drifting from the TV screen like smoke. When I looked, the screen was black, except for the reflection of the hallway behind me. And in it, just barely visible, was a figure standing where I knew no one should be. I wish I could say I left the house after the second tape, that I packed my bags, burned the damn things in the fireplace, drove straight to the nearest motel, and never looked back. But you and I both know I didn't. And maybe that says something about me. Or maybe it's just the truth that once you've looked into something like that, you can't unsee it, can't unfeel it inside you, twisting like a splinter in your brain that your fingers can't reach. The next few days blurred together in this slow, surreal crawl of half-sleep and searching. Like the house itself had sunk into some different version of time, one where everything dragged just a little, like wading through water. I'd sleep in short, shallow bursts, 20, 30 minutes at a time, always waking up at exactly 3:33 a.m. and drenched in sweat and convinced someone was whispering my name just outside the bedroom door. It wasn't loud. That's the worst part. It was just soft enough to make me question if I'd heard anything at all. And that constant gaslighting from my own senses started eating at my sanity. The third tape waited on the table, like it knew I was working up the courage to press play, like it could smell my hesitation and was getting hungrier the longer I stared at it. It was labeled simply Iris, subject 7 final attempt, and the handwriting wasn't quite my dad's. Close, but shakier, like he'd been exhausted or afraid. That scared me more than anything, because my dad was the kind of man who once set his own broken finger back into place without flinching. If something had rattled him, then it was something that shouldn't exist. I watched the tape on a Wednesday afternoon, bright sunlight outside the windows, every light in the house on, phone within reach. None of it helped. This time, the footage began with a close-up of the mirror. It had been moved from the basement into what looked like the upstairs guest bedroom, the same one my uncle used to stay in when he visited. The room was dark, except for a circle of desk lamps aimed at the mirror, making the glass shimmer like the surface of water. A man sat in front of it, middle-aged, unshaven, clearly disoriented, and my dad paced behind him, holding a clipboard. The man muttered under his breath, rocking slightly, and I couldn't make out the words at first. But after rewinding and cranking the volume up, I realized he was saying, "I can see me, but it's not me." He's mouthing something I'm not saying. My dad's voice, detached, clinical, said, "That's the mirror phase. He's trying to find your timing. Don't blink." The man let out a choked sound and began weeping, and in the mirror, his reflection suddenly smiled. It was so fast, 1 frame maybe, but I saw it. The man didn't. My dad said, "Good, he's almost ready." Then the screen glitched hard, colors warping, audio twisting like a slowed-down cassette, and when it came back, the room was empty. The chair was there, but the man was gone. The mirror? It now reflected the room correctly, except for one thing. My father was standing in the reflection, but not in the actual room. I paused the tape, stood up, and walked away from the TV because I could feel my heart pounding in my teeth. I knew what this was. I didn't understand it, but I knew. Something was using that mirror, not as a reflection, but as a door. That phrase from the journal, "The loop is not mental, it's architectural." It clicked. He wasn't talking about psychological loops. He meant something built, something functional. My dad built a door, or maybe found a way to open one, and the mirror was just the frame. I spent the rest of the day scouring the house, not just for more tapes, but for answers. I searched places I'd never thought to check before, beneath floorboards, behind wall panels, under the crawl space, and I kept finding scraps. Torn pages with scribbled equations, names of subjects, and a spiral symbol over and over again. That spiral showed up in every notebook, every margin, and the deeper I got, the more I began seeing it elsewhere. Burned faintly into the attic beams, etched into the base of the bathroom mirror, even drawn under the paint in my old bedroom closet. My dad had been living with this thing for decades, and somehow I'd never known. That night, I couldn't sleep again, and just before 3 a.m., I heard something knock from inside the bedroom mirror. Not loud, just 3 slow knocks, evenly spaced, like someone gently rapping their knuckles on the other side of the glass. I didn't look. I couldn't. I lay there stiff as a corpse. Blanket up to my chin like that would somehow protect me, staring at the ceiling until morning. The next day, I found the journal again, the one I'd left in the basement, and in the back, tucked inside a sleeve like it was never meant to be found, was a Polaroid photo. It showed the basement, only it wasn't quite right. The mirror was there, but it was taller, almost stretching to the ceiling, and in front of it stood 2 boys. Both of them looked like me. One was smiling, the other had no expression at all. I flipped the photo over. On the back, written in red ink, "Only one comes back. Always." I dropped the picture and had a full-on panic attack. I'm not exaggerating. I couldn't breathe, couldn't see straight, felt like I was going to vomit or black out or both. When I finally calmed down, I knew what I had to do. I had to find out why. Why did my dad build that thing? Why record it? Why hide it away? And why leave it where I'd find it? The final notebook I opened was different from the others. It was older, maybe from the early 90s, and it didn't have notes. It had entries, diary style. The handwriting was rougher, rushed. The first entry was dated March 2nd, 1992. I saw her again in the mirror. She hasn't aged. She asked where Ethan was. I told her he wasn't born yet. She said, "He already is." Another entry, April 4th, 1993. The mirror lied. It showed me her alive. Happy, said I could step through. I tried. I lost 42 minutes. I came back with blood on my hands and no memory of what happened. Final entry, August 20th, 1996. Subject 7 crossed. He said the others are there, that they never stop talking, that Ethan will have to finish it. I told him no. He smiled with my face and said, "You already did." That's when I finally understood. This wasn't just some project. This wasn't about psychology or fringe science or even the occult. This was personal. My dad did something he couldn't undo, and he knew that eventually it would come back for me. Maybe it already had. Maybe I was never the original. I don't know. All I know is the more I watch the tapes, the more I recognize what I see. The people, the voices, even the basement. It all feels like memory, not discovery. I'm writing this now in the living room with all the lights on and the TV turned to static, which makes me feel less alone for some reason. Every night, the mirror in the hallway gets a little colder. I've stopped looking into it. I cover it with a towel like people do when someone dies. But sometimes I see it flutter. Sometimes I hear my father's voice whispering from the other side. And last night, I swear I saw a hand press against the glass, identical to mine. Fingertip to fingertip, perfectly in sync. Only I wasn't moving. I think the worst part wasn't the fear itself. It was the slow erosion of trust in my own thoughts. Like every memory, every twitch of my hand, every blink felt just slightly borrowed. Like I wasn't piloting the machine anymore, but just watching from somewhere deep inside as someone who looked like me started to take over the day-to-day. After the photo, the one with the two boys, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't the real Ethan. Or if I was, that something else had been pretending to be me for so long that it had started bleeding into my skin. It was like trying to prove to yourself that you're not dreaming. Except the dream doesn't end and there's no alarm clock. No jolt awake, just a long, slow drift into unfamiliar habits. Saying things you don't remember thinking. Dreaming of places you've never been, but waking up with dirt under your nails, like maybe you had. I stopped checking the mirrors completely after that night. I couldn't even bring myself to use the bathroom with the light on. I'd brush my teeth looking at the floor, because I swear the last time I looked into the hallway mirror, it blinked when I didn't. Not a trick of the eye, not a sleepy misperception. It blinked while I was still staring. But that's not the worst part. The worst part started 2 days later when I found the voice recorder. I was going through the garage, just trying to distract myself, pretending I was still there to clean the place up instead of losing my grip on everything I'd ever believed to be true. The recorder was wedged in the back of Dad's old toolbox, the red one with the broken handle, right beneath a set of wire strippers and a rusted wrench that looked like it hadn't moved in decades. It was one of those cheap, plasticky 90s models. Low battery, corroded speaker. But when I pressed play, it whined to life. My father's voice came through first, slightly younger, talking about synchronization rates, about matching subjects to their echo cells, about the recursion window being open for no longer than 33 seconds, or it finds the twin. But it was the voice after his that froze my blood. It was me. My voice. Not as a kid now. I said, clear as day, "He doesn't know I crossed. Don't let him see the mirror again. If he remembers too much, we both go back." And then the tape stopped. Just stopped. I dropped it and backed away like it had burned me. I didn't remember ever saying that. I didn't remember ever being recorded. But it was undeniably me. Same tone, same rhythm, the way I'd pronounce mirror with that slight Pennsylvanian flatness. So either I had some kind of breakdown and was wandering the house recording myself in secret, or, and I hate even writing this, there was another me. One that knew more than I did. One that was using me to finish what Dad started. That night, I tore the place apart. Not metaphorically, I mean, I ripped the mirror out of the hallway wall, smashed it with a hammer, kicked it down the basement stairs. I took down every reflective surface I could find. Picture frames, windows, even the microwave door. I wrapped everything in old sheets and duct tape, muttering to myself like a lunatic about light reflections and recursion doors in the shape of memory. I must have looked insane. I felt insane. But I also felt like someone was watching me from just 1 inch behind reality. Like if I moved too quickly or turned around too fast, I'd see a pair of eyes that looked like mine, only older, hungrier. And then the house started talking. Not voices, not exactly. More like whispers in the walls, taps and threes beneath the floorboards. A kind of slow vibration that made the fillings in my teeth ache when I stood still too long. I'd pass by my father's bedroom and hear the creak of bed springs, even though the room was empty and hadn't been touched since the funeral. I found muddy footprints in the upstairs hallway leading from the bathroom mirror, the one I forgot to cover, all the way to the attic. I followed them. I had to. It was like being pulled by a magnet lodged behind my ribs. The attic was the same as before, dark, full of dust, cobwebs clinging to the rafters like ghost skin. But this time, there was something new. A mirror, just leaning there in the far corner. Tall, cracked at the top, wrapped in old burlap that had been partially pulled aside like someone or something wanted it to be found again. I hadn't put it there. I swear I hadn't. I didn't even know we had another mirror that size, but I recognized it anyway. It was the same one from the tapes. Same weird distortion in the upper left corner. Same shimmer around the edges like heat waves. I stepped toward it slowly, heart pounding like a war drum, and I could feel something moving on the other side. Not physically, but emotionally, like dread made into shape and sound. I didn't want to look. I really didn't, but I had to. Just once, just to be sure. And when I looked into it, I mean really looked, straight into it, I didn't see a reflection at all. I saw the hallway, my hallway, from behind me, like I was being watched through the mirror by something just a step behind. The hairs on the back of my neck rose all at once. I turned around. Nothing was there. But when I looked back into the mirror, I was gone. Just the hallway. Just the door to the guest room, slowly creaking open. And then the tape started playing. I didn't even put one in. The TV downstairs clicked on by itself. Volume low, fuzzy audio coming through the floor. I ran down, tripping over the bottom stair, nearly cracking my skull on the wall. And when I got to the living room, the TV was playing a new tape I'd never seen. This one didn't have a label. The footage was me, sitting on the couch, just like I was at that moment, except in the video, I wasn't alone. Someone else was beside me, someone with my face. He turned slowly toward the camera, smiled, and said, "Found you." I tore the tape out, threw it across the room, and just sat there on the floor, gasping like I'd run a marathon. I didn't know what was real anymore. Still don't, but I know what's not. That thing in the mirror, that version of me on the tape, that's not a reflection. That's not me. It's a copy, a twin, maybe even the original, and I'm the echo. I don't know. Maybe none of us are the original anymore. Maybe Dad figured that out and tried to close the door before it could fully cross over. But it's too late. It's in the house. It knows everything I know. It looks through my eyes when I sleep. And sometimes, when I'm washing my hands, I catch a flicker of movement in the mirror that doesn't match mine. A blink too slow, a smile too wide, a twitch in the wrong place. It watches me the way a hunter watches wounded prey, patiently, endlessly. I haven't left the house in days. I don't think I can. Every time I try to leave, I find myself back in the same room I started in. Sometimes I swear the layout changes. Doors that used to lead to closets now lead to endless black hallways lined with mirrors. Sometimes I wake up in the attic, even though I fell asleep on the couch. The spiral's everywhere now. I found it carved into my skin yesterday, just beneath the elbow, like I scratched it there myself without realizing. I don't think this is about Dad anymore. I think this has always been about me. And whatever lives behind that glass, it's waiting for the last step. For me to let go, to stop fighting, to finish the loop. But I won't, not yet. I'm writing this now by candlelight because the power's gone out and all the clocks are stuck at 3:33. I don't know if I'll make it through tonight, but if anyone finds this, if this story ever makes it outside the house, don't trust what you see in the mirror. Don't listen if it talks. And whatever you do, never blink at the same time it does. That's how it gets in. This is the last time I'm writing anything down. I know that now, not because I've run out of things to say, but because I can feel it, like the air's changed, like the pressure behind my eyes has built into something that's ready to pop, and whatever happens next, I'm not going to be in control of it anymore. Hell, maybe I haven't been for a while, and I'm only just realizing it. It's been days, maybe weeks. I honestly don't know anymore. Since the lights went out and the clocks stopped ticking, and I've lost count of how many times I've fallen asleep in one room and woken up in another, with the layout of the house subtly different, like the angles are all a little off, or the doorways are just an inch too tall. And it's driving me mad, because I know this place. I grew up in this house. I could navigate it blindfolded. And now I feel like I'm trapped inside a copy of it, a mirror of it, something that looks like home, but isn't, like a dream someone else is having of my life. I found another tape 2 days ago. I think it was 2 days, hidden in the back of the refrigerator, wrapped in tin foil, stuffed behind the motor like someone didn't want it cold. They just wanted it hidden. And this one wasn't like the others. No label, no time stamp, nothing but black casing and a sticky fingerprint smeared on the spine. I didn't want to play it. God knows I didn't. But what else was I going to do? Sit here and wait to rot? So I plugged in the generator again, got the old TV humming, and when I pressed play, it didn't start with static this time. It started with me, sitting in the basement, crying. The camera was set far back, almost hidden behind some old equipment, and I was slumped in the same chair Dad used for the experiments, bound at the wrists with cable ties, and the weird thing was, I didn't look scared. I looked calm. Exhausted, but calm, like I knew this was the end. Then Dad appeared on screen, only he looked even older than when he died. His hair was completely gray, his face sunken in like something had hollowed him out from the inside, and he leaned down, put a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "This is the last one. After this, it's his turn." I wanted to scream, but my throat just dried up. The Ethan on screen looked straight at the camera and said, "He's not going to understand at first, but he will. He always does." Then the footage warped, cracked like a film reel melting in a projector, and suddenly I was watching myself, not on tape, but live, like the camera had switched and was showing the living room, where I was sitting at that very moment, holding the remote, mouth hanging open. Only I wasn't alone. Sitting across from me on the other couch was him, the other me, the one I've felt circling me this entire time. He smiled, not cruelly, not like a villain in a movie, but gently, patiently, like someone who's been waiting a very long time for something to click. And then the screen cut to black, just black. I sat there for what felt like an hour, waiting for it to come back, for something else to happen. But nothing did. No sound, no glitch, just silence. So I turned, slowly, like my body already knew what I was going to see. And there he was, not across the room anymore, right beside me, same posture, same clothes, same everything, except the eyes. His eyes were wrong. They didn't reflect any light. They were just dot, matte like obsidian. And when he spoke, it was in my voice, but layered, like it echoed off walls that weren't in the room. "It's your turn now," he said. "You've seen everything. You remember. I didn't argue. I didn't run. I just stared, and then I understood. I wasn't Ethan Carter. Or at least, I wasn't this Ethan Carter. I was the memory of him, the imprint left behind after he crossed through that mirror all those years ago. The real one, the original. He didn't come back. Or maybe he did, but so did something else. And now, all these years later, the loop is closing. And I'm the final copy that has to be erased for it to begin again. I went to the basement after that. Not because he told me to, because I knew I had to. And it wasn't the same anymore. The stairs didn't creak. The air was thick and heavy like syrup, and the lights buzzed faintly without power, like the house itself was alive now, pulsing with a heart I couldn't hear but could feel in the soles of my feet. The mirror was waiting, perfect, intact, centered against the far wall, like it had never been shattered. And in it, I saw the room exactly as it was, except empty. No me, no equipment. Just an open door at the far end, leading into darkness. I stepped closer. My reflection didn't move. I blinked. It didn't. I raised my hand. Nothing. It just stood there, staring past me, as if it saw someone behind me I couldn't turn around to face. Then it smiled, Not wide, not exaggerated. Just a soft, satisfied grin like a job finally completed. And then it stepped forward, out of the mirror. I don't know how to explain it. There was no shattering, no noise, no light show. It just merged with me, like two images lining up in a projector reel, and for a second, I felt weightless, disoriented, like every memory I'd ever had was being shuffled, re-indexed, replaced. My name echoed in my head like a question instead of an answer. Ethan Carter. Ethan Carter. Ethan, then it stopped. I was on the floor, alone. The mirror was gone. In its place was a brick wall, sealed tight with fresh mortar. The house felt lighter, quieter, but not right, because now I can't remember what I used to look like. I see photos, childhood birthdays, prom, my college ID, but none of them feel like me. My voice sounds wrong. I don't sleep anymore, but I don't feel tired either. I just exist, watching, listening, waiting. There's a new mirror in the upstairs hallway now. I don't remember putting it there. Sometimes when I walk past it at night, I see someone else's bedroom in the reflection, not mine. And I know one day soon, someone's going to move into this house, maybe a son cleaning up after his dead father, and he's going to find a box in the attic, a dusty old VHS tape wrapped in duct tape, and he's going to play it out of curiosity. And when he does, I'll be waiting, on the other side, smiling, because the loop has to continue. That's how it survives. That's how we survive, one memory at a time, one reflection at a time. So if you're reading this, and I know you are, don't bother turning around. Don't look in the mirror. It's too late. You already did. Welcome to the final session.